Hopefully we're not going to be setting fire to anything today. Now, what we are going to be looking at is how to get designs onto steel. And this particular process is an etching process accelerated by using electricity. And it sounds exciting, but it's not really. I have made a slide. So this is the slide for the whole workshop. It's not very complicated, but this is kind of what we're working with. So what you can see here is a circuit diagram. It's very simple. It's got a power source at the top, which in this case is actually a battery. And it's got an anode and a cathode. The anode is the thing that's going to have the design on it. The cathode is basically just an electrode, which is just going to essentially get burnt away during the process. Actually, it's going to get green to them. And what you can see at the bottom is like a little bath, which has got an electrolyte in it. The electrolyte is basically just a conductive fluid. And in this case, what we're going to do is use table salt. Product placement. So this is what we're going to use as a bath, an electrolyte bath. I'll find a place where you can actually see it. And at the moment, it's got water in it, nothing but water. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tip in some of this salt. It's quite a bit of salt. And I'm just going to leave that for a while for the salt to just dissolve. So we've got a nice salt solution. And while we're doing that, we can look at the other side of etching, which is how you actually get your design onto a piece of metal. So here you can see a fairly familiar design, and it looks a little bit odd because it's got bits of white, bits of black, but basically this is just vinyl, sticky back vinyl, sticky back plastic as we used to call it. And so it comes in sheets like this, and you can just cut out shapes in it. If you've got access to a vinyl plotter, you can actually get a computer to cut shapes out, which is far more accurate and a lot less time consuming. So all I've done is cut shapes out of that vinyl, stuck them onto the steel, and then I've used this little roller thing here just so that I can get like a really nice and pressed down design onto the plate. And you can use other things for resist. You can use nail varnish works. And in this process, with the little bath, it's quite a gentle process, so you don't have to worry too much about heat and all that kind of stuff. So you can use nail varnish, you can use paint, and any paint that you can get off with thinners or that kind of thing. So for this particular experiment, we're going to be using a power source. Now this is a battery thing that I constructed some years ago for recharging phones. And it's got a 5-volt output on it. So we're going to be using 5 volts for this, this etch. And I've got some flying leads what I made. One of the danger things about etching with electricity is getting a short circuit, because that's usually bad for wherever is the power source. So if you're using a power supply, for example, like a phone charger power supply, and you short circuit it, it's not good for the power supply, which is partly why I'm using a battery, so I don't set fire to anything. And okay, so if we go back to the diagram for a minute, so you see the anode is the positive plate. So the plate that's going to be etched is a positive plate, so it always goes on the positive side of whatever battery you've got. So I'm going to just going to attach the flying lead to this plate, and then I'm going to submerge this plate in water. Now it needs to go in all the way to cover the thing that's been etched. So you need to make sure you get all of the design underwater. And I'm just going to put this under here to stop it falling in. So there's the design underwater. I don't know if you can see that from that angle. I'll just turn it sideways. You can see the design's actually completely in the solution now, which at the moment is still only salt. And I'm going to use a piece of brass plate. I want a plate that's around about the same size as the thing that you're actually etching. A fresh piece of this. Well, it's a brass plate. This is actually it's an old symbol cut up. So they do come in handy when the drummers have beaten them to death. I'm just going to submerge that plate in the other side of the tank. There we go. And let's see if I can get it so you can see both plates. There we go. Right. So there we go. We're ready to actually etch. So I'm just going to switch this on. And nothing happens much to start with. You'll see very shortly that this plate will start going black. So you should be able to see that this plate's starting to change colour now. And eventually you'll get a reaction where the whole of this tank's going to go a different colour. It's going to go yellow because it's going to be full of other gunk. And this is very gently going to etch. So the steel that's still bare is going to start getting like a matted look to it. And the steel that's underneath the design will stay shiny. And this process takes about, well, you can leave it for as long as you need. The longer you leave it, the deeper the etch. But 10 minutes will give you a noticeable pattern change. So this is a quick one that I did yesterday just to try it. So that was 10 minutes in this solution just to get that heart shape. And it's not a very deep etch. You can feel it with your fingernail. You can just feel the edge. So that's probably about 1/10 of a millimetre or something like that. It's very small. And like I said, that was 10 minutes in this solution. Now you can just start to see the bubbles forming now on the surface of the brass plate. What you should find is bubbles forming on the cathode, not necessarily on the anode, but they will form on the anode. And if you get a bubble, whenever you get a bubble, you're not getting any etching. So you don't really want bubbles on the design side of things. You want to make sure that you keep the bubbles off that at the moment. It's bubble free. That do its thing. Right, so that's going to take a little while. So while that's doing that, I'm just going to move it up the bench a little bit. Very careful. And I'm just going to go through another process, which is very similar, but also very much not quite as safe.
Wow.
This is electro etching, but it's more akin to spark erosion. So I'm going to take a hefty power supply in this case. This is a 12-volt battery charger. It's a very basic one. It doesn't do anything fancy because that's what you want. You just want it to be able to put out some amps, 12 volts. Okay, so then one of the main dangers with this is getting yourself a short circuit, which is bad for the power supply, although it's got a big fuse in it, so the fuse is likely to go before we set fire to anything. You can do this with a car battery as well, just to charge the car battery up, just do it with a car battery. And I'll give you the same sort of power. Okay. Right, I don't know if you can see this. I'm just going to see if I can take the camera over to the tank, but it is going slightly yellow now. Okay, so find some more plug it in. Okay, let's not put in touching. So, it's a sacrificial piece of wood.
It is now.
It is now. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make up another electrolyte solution, but this one is going to be a little bit different because this is also going to have some acid in it. And in this case, we're going to be using vinegar. So these are substances which you can get anywhere, and we're all quite familiar with them. They're all very safe, and there's no health warnings on them. So we're going to use vinegar and salt to create an electrolyte. This is going to be a very, very strong electrolyte. But rather than what we're doing with the tank, we are actually going to be using a piece of cloth, which is going to be saturated in the electrolyte. That is going to complete our circuit. So I'm just going to cut a simple shape with a piece of metal here. A shape that I can put onto this, there is this. We'll just do a basic cross. So you can see now. I'll just cut a cross out of this.
That solution's definitely going yellow now.
Yeah, and you can smell it now as well. You can, amongst all the vinegar and the salt, it does smell a little bit like Friday night chippy tea, to be honest. So I'm just going to put this design on here. I'm going to roll it flat to get the bubbles out of it. And I'm going to get another piece of my, I'm positioning myself on the bench so I can actually get some room underneath, because this is what I'm going to do is I'm going to be bringing these two plates together with this in the middle. So I'm going to soak this in the salt and vinegar solution. And it does need to be wet. If it's dry, it might set on fire. So this version is slightly more messy, but one of the advantages of this particular version is that you can you don't have to put something in a bath. So say for example you've got a sword and you wanted to put a little logo, an emblem on the actual blade itself. You wouldn't want a sword length tank and have to fill that up, and also you'd have to actually cover up all of the bits of the sword which you didn't want to be etched. It would be quite an involved process, whereas using this process what you can do is you can just cover up a portion of the blade, and you can still get a reasonable etch. So that's soaking there for a second. So I'm going to attach my electrodes, and as we said, the bit that's going to be etched is a positive one. That's going to be the anode. Cathode is going to be this brass plate. Right. I do really want to not make these touch at all, so I want to make sure that I keep that quite safely distant so I don't accidentally catch them underneath. I'm going to put my electrolyte on there, got charger turned on, and I'm going to put the plate on top of that one. Now, you probably can't hear this, but we can hear this fizzing. Yeah. And I've got my fingers on the plate and I can feel it buzzing. And if you look at the ammeter, that's going straight up to like 7 amps or something.
Straight to 11.
Is it goes straight to 11? Yeah, we turned it up to 11. Now, this is getting hot. I can feel this in my fingers. This plate's getting hot. So I'm just going to leave it there for a wee bit longer. Another cool thing of this process is that the cloth that you use as your electrolyte sort of holder will actually transfer its texture into the etch. So if you've got like a cloth towel or something like that, you will actually get the texture of the towel in the etch, which can be quite cool, depending on what you're doing. Now, yeah, that's getting very hot. And also what you'll see on the underside of this plate, it's gone black. It was that colour, now it's this colour. That is mostly iron. Some of it's going to be sodium. There might even be a little bit of bleach amongst that. And you can see this has gone yellow as well. And if we take this off very carefully, we can see that we've already got pattern texture of the cloth actually in the metal, but it's not gone everywhere yet. And underneath this resist, it will be perfectly fine. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to re-wet that. I'm going to get a bit more electrolyte on that because it does dry out and does burn off. I'll put that back on the plate. I'm going to go for that again. Fizzing and bubbling. Now underneath this, there will be sparks. With tiny little electrical sparks. And this is a very aggressive reaction compared to the other one. And the more aggressive the reaction, the more byproducts that you actually get from the reaction. Now, at this scale, we're only talking a small amount of stuff, but you don't want to breathe any of it in, and you certainly won't want it on your sandwiches. So this is definitely not something you want to really be doing in the kitchen.
Well ventilated area.
Very well ventilated. Okay. There's one little bit that didn't really etch down here, and this partly because this metal's not entirely flat. It's just some scraps that we got and shined up a little bit. But this will you'll still be able to see the difference when you take that resistor. It's just not very powerful. So what I'm going to go and do now is I'm going to go and clean these up a little bit. So I'm going to run them under some just cold water and.
I'll do that and then you can talk.
Okay. You can see that this is what's left of the cloth. It's full of gunk. So that gunk then, the reaction that we get, especially in the more aggressive reaction, you get hydrogen released. Those are the little bubbles. In fact, those are the little bubbles that you can see in the tank. It's mostly hydrogen. You will get a little bit of oxygen, but you also might get chlorine gas. And so when you've been to swimming baths, you can smell the chlorine in the air. It smells like that, exactly like that. And if it smells like that, it means that you need more ventilation because chlorine being a heavy gas, if you can smell it at head high, it means that further down, it's going to be quite thick and heavy, and it is poisonous in certain concentrations. So here we go. So I'm just peeling off the resist now. Okay, so this is the etch that we've just done. Now this is unpolished, of course. We've not done anything with it. We just peeled the etch off and given it a bit of a rinse. But if that was in a spolder, by the time that's polished up, you will see the cross. You'll definitely see the cross. That is still quite a small etch. It's only a fraction of a millimetre. You can only just feel the edge of it. So you could have done that on another piece of cloth and done that another few times until you get to the depth that you want. So that is electro etching in two different parts. We'll come back to this one. This is at 10 minutes now, isn't it? So we'll do the same with this one. I'll turn the power off first. Some short circuits. So I don't know if you can see, but this, I'll bring the bath up a little bit. This bath is very yellow now. So you can see the colour that's gone. And if we leave it, it will go really dark brown. So do you want to? You can see that our plate that we put in the cathode again has gone black, front and back. Incidentally, if you're doing a lot of etching and you leave the cathode in, the same cathode, and it keeps going black, the blacker it gets, the less efficient it is. So you need to either keep taking it out, scrubbing it, cleaning it, or replacing it. Okay, so this is what we've just etched with a little bit of. So it's just had a rinse, so we can have a look at this one. You can see the metal around here has gone compared to the top. It's just a little bit duller. We could probably have left this one a little bit longer. But if I peel off the resist, you should see underneath. Needs a lot longer actually, this one. What I might do is I might put that back in the tank. And give that a little bit longer. I'll come back to that after lunch. So something that does make a difference as well is the distance between anode and cathode. We'll do that. So the further away that the electrodes are from each other, the longer it will take as well, because of more resistance. Right, so I'm going to leave that for half an hour and see how that comes out, and I'll show you in a bit. I'm going to go wash my hands. So that's come out quite well, but that took the better part of an hour, that particular etch. I could have perhaps put more salt in the solution, which would have sped it up a little bit. But this is the solution that started off as just nice clear water. It's now definitely not for drinking. I should go and dispose of that somewhere safe. I might polish these up a bit. You might find these on some armour near you in the near future. Okay, so any questions?
I am allergic to chlorine, but this thing is absolutely fascinating. I mean, I'm allergic to chlorine, you know, in the way that if I clean with bleach, I have to put my head down the toilet, I have to clean it. You absolutely have to have the production of chlorine gas? Is it essential to it? And how much of it is there?
It's not an essential part of the process. It is a part of the process that you can't change.
Okay. So basically do it outside if it's me. So yeah.
I mean, you can use a different electrolyte that doesn't have chlorine in it. So if you're not using salt, if you're not using sodium chloride, you could use sulfates. You could use copper sulfate, something like that.
All right, but that's the one that makes the little crystals, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So you're good at chemistry.
But one of the things to point out is that all of these processes, some of them start, this one starts with benign substances, starts with salt or salt and vinegar. Some of them start with substances that are already dangerous in their own right, and just get more dangerous the more you change them. So this is one of the easier processes to do at home. That's got readily available materials that don't need licenses to handle or dispose of. If you go back in history, they used to use things like boric acid for etching. This is not electro etching, this is just acid etching. And I think one of the early treatises on etching, the first line of it says, "Take your least favoured apprentice," because they weren't going to last long. They were going to be. You won't want to waste your good apprentice on etching, so you take the ones that you're not really fond of.
You've only got 2 of us.
That's amazing.
But,
I am not going to ask.
luckily, I don't use boric acid for doing it. You can use nitric acid as well, and
That's not better.
it's not better. No, it's not better. But again, this is why this is quite a safe version of the etching process.
I think I'll just hold my breath with the chlorine, to be honest. But it's fascinating. It's really, really good. I gave up chemistry at 40. And I'm like, oh, this is fascinating. I remember this stuff.